me bring in the guests who are joining me now. Lieutenant General Dhillon joins us. We have Arvind Jain joining us, Sushant, Sareen, Strategic Affairs expert as well. Lieutenant General Dhillon, I'm looking at what Dr. Umar says. And he speaks about indoctrination and he says that this is the right path. But if you look at the entire chain of events and the larger conspiracy, do you sense that there could be several such Dr. Umars now, because this is white-collar ecosystem that they have built. Some of them are being unraveled, and that is the primary concern.
Thank you, ma'am, and good evening to you and the fellow panelists and your viewers. See, in Kashmir Valley, over the last few decades, it was a very common practice by Hurriyat that any student who wants to go abroad for studies or even studying medicine or other technical courses within India used to get a recommendation from Saeed Ali Shah Gilani. And they used to be recruited based on his recommendation. And as we all know, Saeed Ali Shah Gilani would not give a recommendation to anyone who is not against India or who does not align with his thinking. So radicalization of the students who are going for these studies abroad to get a white-collar certificate was always in practice in Kashmir. And this is just one extension of that. Now, this video, if you look at the video very carefully, I will not call him a doctor, he's a terrorist. This terrorist, Umar, is trying to remember things which he probably wanted to say in the video. He's giving pauses. He's sniffing and he's touching his nose, the typical of a druggie. He seems to be drugged, and it's also a common practice in Kashmir during Fidayeen days of 99s and other things. I was a major then, that anyone who used to come in for a Fidayeen attack used to be heavily drugged. That suicide bomber would used to be heavily drugged so that he is not in his senses, and radicalization was always there. And similar is the case in this particular incident. Now, trying to justify killing of innocents, which no religion on
Absolutely.
earth can justify killing of innocent civilians, which this terrorist has indulged in. And trying to justify his act by spinning of words is not going to get him the legitimacy which is what trying to achieve.
Yes.
I think it's a clear-cut case of a deranged man who acted.
You're calling him deranged, or will you say that this is a case of indoctrination, radicalization?
Is that for me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, of course it's a case of a total radicalization. A person who, our society has great respect for certain professions. And doctor's profession is one of them, because doctor is supposed to be the savior of lives, not the taker of lives. And this terrorist, having got that qualification or education, indulged in an act of mass murders, if I can call that. Mass murders in cold blood. And on top of it is trying to justify his act. That is most unfortunate.
Yes.
And any child or student watching this broadcast should be very clear, no religion teaches killing of innocents who have no fault of theirs.
Yes, Arvind Jain, former DGP, is with us as well. The digital gateway, let's talk about that here. The investigations are suggesting that Dr. Umar and his associates were radicalized through Telegram groups, which are run by Pakistani handlers. And then the question is that how can the Indian agencies effectively monitor and dismantle encrypted digital communication? This is a digital terror ecosystem that we are looking at.
You are absolutely correct. We will have to devise some methods. China has done it. They don't allow use of these apps. So sooner or later, decision will have to be taken, because it is being misused. It is being misused by terrorists against country. So that is a very important issue, and government will have to take a decision. Explanation should be called from the people who are running the apps, that how come this is being done in our country, in a democracy like this. Attacks are being planned, and nobody is getting a hint of it. So I think once as incidents increase, some mechanism also crops up And I hope that in near future, government of India will take some harsh decisions, because normal people, they don't use these apps. Many of us have not heard also of these apps, session and other this thing apps. So why should be one should be allowed to use them against the security of the country if it is being misused? Because you never know, there some others also must be misusing it. Some harsh decision should be taken.
With regards to apps, let me bring in Sushant Sareen now. Sushant Sareen, uh, last time when you and I spoke, we were in agreement that an entire university should not be painted with the same brush. Al Falah University that we are looking at here. Here is Umar and his associates who were studying there, reportedly working as well. And this process of radicalization perhaps started much before that, and it continues. But then the question is about verification process which should be in place when appointments happen of faculty and also of the students.
Maria, I think it's important to clarify the conversation which we had earlier. My sole point was that, look, if this university is complicit in this crime, or is, has done something which it should not have done and allowed these people to function, then by all means, follow the Yogi model, take a bulldozer and raise it to the ground, for all I care. The problem is very often media, because of the exigencies of time and how the media is constructed, we start naming people, start naming universities, and a kind of a lynch mob mentality comes about, which is what I was cautioning against. So if adequate evidence has been gathered that this university is in some ways involved in whatever has happened, by all means, I'm of the view, follow the Yogi model, take a bulldozer and raise it down. Secondly, there is a limit to how much of verification. How do you verify a doctor who comes into a university and applies for a job? You can check his antecedents. You can try and find some kind of a police report that he's of good character. Check his degree, but how do you get into his mind space? Unless you have some kind of a big brother kind of an approach where you're constantly monitoring what a guy thinks, and that's
That's
that's easier
impossible
said
to
than
do.
done.
I agree. I agree.
Third, I
Yeah.
think I think on this entire app business, look, all these apps are not used only for nefarious activity. But yes, I think the government definitely, and I don't know why they've been soft pedaling it. Whether it is Twitter, which are more open apps, or it is apps like Signal or Telegram, etc., etc., the government must have certain safeguards built into these apps so that they cannot be misused. And that has to be ensured before these apps are allowed to function in India. And if they're not ready to accept what the government wants them to do, then they should be banned from here. You banned Chinese apps, didn't you? What is the big problem in banning a Telegram or a Signal? The guys who are going to call you an undemocratic or, moving towards whatever damn title these damn institutions give you, they will give you anyways. So I don't think we should be bothered about that. Finally, on this particular video which has come out, ideally, Maria, I think this video should not be aired. It should be removed from air. People can
We have
discuss
removed the
this guy.
audio. We have removed the audio, Sushant Sareen.
Yeah,
Of course,
but
this
too
is
late.
very, yes.
Too late. But Maria, my point is, now that it's out there, look, I agree with what General Dhillon is saying up to a point. It's not his last testament. It's not a classical suicide bomber video. This is as though he's trying to record something to convince other people
That's right.
of the righteousness of suicide bombing, of finding some kind of a religious justification for suicide bombing. And this justification is actually, and you would understand this word, it's a kind of a bidat within the religion.
That's right.
It's kind of an innovation which has been brought about by terrorist groups to justify their acts
That
of terrorism.
reading in itself is wrong. That reading in
No, no,
itself
look,
is haram.
look,
Let's be clear.
look,
There cannot be no religion can justify killings of others. So this
Maria, the
reading by
problem
Dr.
is,
Umar is a problem.
Maria, the problem is that while I might agree with you on, on the face of it, but the fact of the matter remains that there are religious scholar after religious scholars within, and it's not just limited to Islam, it's in other religions. But since right now we are talking about Islam, there are religious scholars. After all, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi of ISIS was a PhD in Islam. Now,
That's right.
certainly he knows more about Islam than you and I do. And he used Islamic tests to justify whatever that damn organization was doing, right? The point is that enough counter narratives have not been brought about by moderate
Moderate
religious
voices,
scholars
I
to
agree.
counter these things.
Yes. So I have just enough
So
time
that
for
is the problem.
for the final comments from General Dillon. General Dillon, here is Dr. Umar's family, which has expressed shock. But now let's talk about the role of what will be seen as sleeper cell operatives. What specifics can be done with regards to the local communities, the family units, because there are these messages, the subtle changes which begins to happen. If this is the state of mind of a doctor, then you can imagine this is the nature of his communication to others as well, all those he is interacting with.
Yeah, Maria, absolutely. Firstly, I refuse to call him a doctor. He's a terrorist,
Sure.
a terrorist, a terrorist. Now, having said that, no individual gets so radicalized to the extent of, laying down his own life for a cause which he believes in, but which is against his faith, technically. And if a radicalization of this nature has to happen, it happens over time. And the parents, the teachers, the friends will see the change in behavior. The behavioral change is visible. Only thing is someone has to notice it and then act upon it. But most of the time, having seen Kashmir society very closely, moment the child is out of Kashmir or studying in Delhi or Faridabad or wherever, they always say, "Bacha to bahar hai, bacha to bahar hai." The bacha bahar hai does not take away your responsibility as a parent to understand what the child is indulging in, who is he dealing with, who is he living with, sitting with, and what type of
But how can
indoctrination is.
parents monitor all the movements? That doesn't happen.
Yeah, parent does not monitor all the moments, but we all have been parents, we all have been kids. Parents do monitor with whom we go out, with whom we sit. हमारा दोस्त कौन हम बात किससे करते हैं. Once in a while, checking all these things is a done thing. But having said all this, this indoctrination by sleeper cells is a Jaish-e-Mohammed model. This Maulvi Irfan, who was, a male nurse. Now, if this type of a person with this type of, his background can indoctrinate the doctors, then you can imagine the type of cells which are operating in the society, in our universities, in our outer space.
Yes.
So we must be very, very clear and as alert citizens.
Yes. So
We
when
should
you say
always be
alert
watchful
citizens,
of our environment.
alert citizens, Arvind Jain, how alert can you be if your son here is a doctor, a qualified doctor, a working professional, then how can parents monitor him? This is indoctrination which perhaps began during his college years, and he continues to do that, and then he takes this step.
No, parents come to know. I don't agree with this. Parents come to know. You talk to your children, whether they are studying in an engineering college or in a university. You keep on talking to them. You can find the behavioral change, and you can talk to the people, his friends, and discuss it as to what is wrong with the person. The children come home also for vacations. You can detect the behavioral change, and it is the duty of the parents, it is the duty of the friends to check this kind of tendency in the children. And if such tendency is not checked, it is going to be very suicidal for the society.
Right. Arvind Jain, Lieutenant General Dillon and Sushant Sareen, thank you for joining us, and thank you for explaining to us what you thought about this recorded video, undated at the moment, of Umar, who is responsible for the lives that were lost at the Red Fort.